Well, great to have your company this morning. Great to see you as well, Brad Fittler, Andrew Johns and Billy Slater.
Morning, Danny.
All right, well, let's get started. This is probably the best time of the year for a footy fan, and especially if you are a Broncos or a Panthers fan. But we're going to kick off with our salutes this morning. So, Freddie, what's your salute?
Mine's to the Wars. They didn't make the grand final week, but I've got to say the impact they have had on the country of New Zealand, given they sacrificed a couple of years living in Australia to help the competition. The way they played in that game last night, a few things went against them. The score didn't look pretty at the end, but I thought they were very competitive for a long time. The style in which they play, and that's why they get the support. And then listen to Sean Johnson at the end and talk about the positivity of what they've set up for the future. How they've got to go away and work hard. They get Roger Tuivasa-Sheck back. They get Chanel Harris-Tavita back. They lose pretty much no one. So I think they've got a great future ahead. And, you know, just thankful for what they've done over the past and what they've done this year for the game.
Yeah, it's so good to see rugby league so vibrant in New Zealand as well. There was
Fantastic.
So many,
they've done a great job.
and there were so many fans, Warriors fans there last night at Suncorp Stadium. Yeah, it was. I think it was equally as loud at sometimes. All right, well, let's get on to your Sunday salute. I like this one.
Mine's Friday night in the sheds after the game. The one and only world champion, Mick Fanning. There he is, getting saturated. Yeah, world champion surfer and world champion fella. Number one ticket holder for Penrith. He's a Penrith tragic. Learned his trade surfing in the Nepean River at Penrith there. But he was loving it, and he's back next week.
Yeah.
I saw some stars out there this weekend. We had Paddy Mills
Paddy
at
Mills,
the Broncos game last night.
Yeah. Did you had a good chat to Mick in the sheds, didn't you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's a good fella.
Yeah.
Proud New South Welshman too.
Yeah, he loves it. Bill, what's your salute this morning?
I'm saluting the passion for our game up in Papua New Guinea. Obviously, the Prime Minister's 13 took a game up there on the weekend, and the Papua New Guineans really put it to the Australians. But just some of the scenes, here's the Kangaroos arriving at the airport in Port Moresby, and just incredible. It's not just a game for this country and these people, it's a religion. I've got the honour to play alongside Marcus Bai and Justin Olam, and the passion for the game is incredible. Look at this is the happiest time of their life.
The sound through the TV is amazing.
Well, and at any stage of the game, a hit up, a tackle, a six again call, they just erupted in the crowd. They loved it.
Yeah, I love seeing when the players are getting to the ground and all the fans are swamping the bus and
Chasing the bus.
Yeah. All right, well, let's have a look at the results so far. 2 games and 2 very important games, and Freddie, some big score lines.
Yeah, some big score lines, and the Panthers 32 points winners against the Storm. It was competitive for a while, and then also the Broncos 30-point winners. And if you go back to their first semi-finals and you reverse those teams on the right, they both won by the margin of 26. So it just shows you what started in the beginning of the season was such a competitive season has turned out with the 2 teams have risen to the top. They are the icing, and I can't wait for next week.
And it shows you the 2-week preparation into a preliminary final. You know, they get 14 days instead of the 7 days, which the opponent's got, and it just gives you such an upper hand. They're physically ready to go, and also mentally they got their games on. So that extra time in the preparation certainly helped.
Yeah, and don't forget, if you haven't secured your tickets yet to the grand final, you can do so. The tickets go on sale Monday, 10 a.m. for club members, so head online to the nrl.com/tickets as well. But let's get stuck into that Broncos-Warriors game from last night. What a game it was, 42-12 the result in the end. How impressed were you with this Broncos performance?
Well, it was a bit of a shaky start. Selwyn Cobbo went down and tackled Nickel Klukstar without the football, and then Arthurs dropped the ball. So it wasn't the greatest start by the Broncos, but they didn't go into their shell. They played their game. Reece Walsh threw an intercept, but they just kept at it, and they didn't shirk their style of football. I thought the offloading was incredible. 23 offloads for the Broncos, whether that was a plan going into the game or whether that's a style. But even off the back of the offloads, they found their halves. I thought Billy Walters did a great job. As soon as he got the offload, he just fired the bullet straight to his halves partner. There is one there. And then they inject this sort of guy. He is just elite. Actually, I want to ask you, Joey, about these offloads in the Broncos game. You know, you used to bring this into your game. What was the plan off the back of it?
Well, any offload, the ball went to your ball players, or get the ball wide as possible to your strike players, and that was it's a great way to attack because it's unstructured play, and you can go from unstructured play to structured play. And off the back of this is what they do. Ball comes out the back, they get it wide straight away. You cannot waste an offload by just giving it to one of the front rowers. You've got to find a halfback who then finds a back rower or a centre. And you get the unstructured defence. You get blokes up, you get blokes back, little edges you can pop in and out of, like Roos is doing there, and it tires the defence out because they make you tackle and have to get back up. Now, this bloke's not a bad athlete either, Payne Haas.
How fast was it when he was running through the middle of the field to...
But these offloads, that's what troubles Penrith. That's the only way you can really break down their defence because defensively they're so well organised and they move so quickly in their defensive structures. You've got to break it up with offloads.
They've got all these different units in their team, the Broncos. They've got these 3 power forwards at the front. I think Flegler's doing an amazing job. Paddy Carrigan and Payne Haas. They just create the momentum through the middle. Billy Walters is getting out of dummy half and being dangerous. Reynolds is this guy that just stands back and just pulls the strings and he just pulls the trigger when he needs to. And then Reece Walsh and the outside backs are so athletic and fast and they just trust their game. They believe in their game. Kevin Walters has done an outstanding job. Look, they didn't play finals last year. We all know what happened to the Broncos at the back end of last year. And one thing that I don't think we can underestimate is the impact of another team in Brisbane. Just that honesty that the Broncos have had to have with themselves with the Dolphins coming into the town of Brisbane. If they don't stand up, well, they may lose a portion of their support. So they really got put, under the microscope this year, and they've come through with flying colours.
So do you feel like the Dolphins have sort of given the Broncos that extra level of motivation and that extra push?
Well, just accountability. They haven't had that accountability in Brisbane for such a long time. They've had the holding of the city, whereas the Dolphins coming in, and it might be a subconscious thing that, hey, we need to stand up here and hold our ground. Otherwise, another team's going to come in and take our territory.
It was quite an interesting start to the game because Warriors, they scored first, and it was try for try early on. You felt like there was going to be a pretty strong battle there, but then it seems like the Broncos just sort of got that level of confidence about themselves.
Well, the difference early was goal kicking. Adam Reynolds hasn't missed a goal in the semi-finals. Nathan Cleary has missed 1 goal which hit the upright in the semi-finals. So, this is how close this game's going to go. They went tit for tat. The fact is they didn't kick their goals. Pompey didn't kick his goals. Really just exaggerated the score a little bit. Then all of a sudden you had the forward pass that led to a try. You had the sin bin after that. And then the game was over. So that forward pass was a big decision.
It was 24-12 at the stage.
Yeah, but I think the goal kicking put them in a worse position and sort of nearly took them out of the game.
It could have been 24-18 if they kicked their goals like the Broncos did.
Yeah.
And that weighs on. Do you think that weighs on?
It just adds pressure. It adds scoreboard pressure.
Absolutely.
Well, we can have a look at the forward pass because there was a pretty big call. This was one of the probably biggest calls. Does something need to happen to ensure that this doesn't happen in a grand final? Can you imagine if this happened, when the game was maybe on a knife's edge?
But you can't. You're not going to change a rule leading into a grand final. And you know what? All we do is talk about getting the bunker out.
Yep, I totally agree.
So they made a bad mistake. That's a bad mistake.
You watch Reece here. He's like, oh, no.
Where's the ref?
What have I done?
Play it cool.
Yeah, they're mistakes. They're mistakes.
Yeah.
So, look, unfortunately, that one went against the Warriors. I don't think it impacted the result of the game. And I get your point. Like, if it's going to impact a result of a big game, we'll, probably have a different view on it. But I like it how it is.
Don't, because there will be calls to maybe, increase the bunker technology.
Thinking about putting some sort of chip in the ball. No, don't overthink it. Just get on and play it.
What'd you think of? So who got sin bin? Pompey? Pompey got sin bin. What'd you think of Katoni Staggs when he grabbed the back row from the Warriors?
I didn't think it was a sin bin. It didn't look like a sin bin to me.
I know it didn't look like it, but he would have scored. If he gets a clean grab at it, he most surely scores. So they end up getting a penalty when he got held up over the line. And Katoni Staggs put his hand and grabbed him.
Oh,
He was nearly past him, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was more just a reaction.
Yeah.
But you still can't grab them. Like, that's the big thing I find in the rules. And you can't grab. You can't use your hands. You can sort of do whatever you can with your elbows and shoulders. And
Yeah.
when I first saw it, I thought he might get sin-binned here because he was in such a good position. He was behind him. He would have got a free grab at the ball and most probably better balance at scoring the try.
Yeah, it wasn't your traditional
I
someone off the
agree.
ball, professional foul. It was nearly past. It was
It
like
was past
the
the
ball shouldn't have been passed, really.
Yeah.
Like he was in the defensive line. So, yeah, I was sitting there watching it as well, and I was thinking, I hope he doesn't get sin bin because I don't think it doesn't feel like a sin bin to me.
Looking back at the Warriors' season, sort of overall, they'd have to label this one as a huge success to get to where they are. What happens next year? How much do you use the success from this year going into 2024?
It's up to the players. It's up to the individuals. It's
Can
not
you
up
see
to
it happening though?
Well, yes, I can.
Sean Johnson made a statement after the game. He said, we're going to get on top of this. We're going to work hard. We're going to use this to springboard us into making grand finals. They get Tuivasa-Sheck. They get Chanel Harris-Tavita. They're not going away and going to fade.
Talking to a couple of assistant coaches, they said there's some really good young talent coming through. So there's Ali Lawatidi's nephew who debuted against Canberra this year. They got huge reps on him. But it's up to the individuals. They've got to turn up whenever they start, early November, and just rip into training.
And it's not easy.
Because we saw the Cowboys this year.
Yeah, we saw the
and
Cowboys.
They've admitted.
Well, we've seen Parramatta Eels and the Rabbitohs, the last two grand finalists against Penrith. They're not playing finals at the moment. It's not easy to do it every year. You've got to do the work, and that's what you've got to marvel over Penrith and what they've been able to do to make 4 grand finals in a row. They've had that hunger, and they've been willing to go and do the work every year.
But you feel that as well for the Warriors, the fact that they didn't make the grand final as well. It's that's even more motivation.
Have a look at their roster
too.
compared to, say, the Penrith roster or the Broncos roster. They haven't got the stars or the superstars that sprinkle all through those teams. Andrew Webster's done an amazing job. Well done to everyone.
I think most of the Warriors players have had the season of their career, really. You look at Sean Johnson, you look at Adam Fanua-Blake. Wade Egan. Tohu Harris has had some great seasons in premiership-winning teams, but I think his leadership has really stood up this year. So most of the Warriors players have had, career-high seasons. So that's got to happen again.
I think Wade Egan's a worry.
With the head knocks.
He got a couple last week.
I'm surprised he came back on the field.
I was very surprised. He shouldn't have come back on the field. And then even last week, I thought he went off twice. He got knocked out twice last week. So I thought they need to get a backup hooker.
Yeah. Nearly every game you watch Wade Egan, he comes off either injured or
He gets so battered and bruised. Yeah, at the end of the game, he looks like he's just played
Great
3
position,
games.
dummy half. Imagine that each week. Yuck.
All right, well, plenty more still to come this morning on the Sunday Footy Show. Up next, we're going to be looking back at the Panthers' big win over the Melbourne Storm as they secured their spot in the grand final. Well, this week, our Manshake Gutsiest Player of the Week award goes to Liam Martin. Big fans, and sets up Nathan Cleary. The big man, he is vital for the Penrith Panthers. Just how big of an impact do you think he'll have on the outcome?
Well, that was the biggest
Sunday?
impact of that game. He got a time, Munster was fatigued. He'd had a couple of big plays in the set before, the Melbourne Storm 5-8, and Liam Martin just showed you he just doesn't care who's in front of you. He just ran, he had the arm out. He's just getting better and better.
He makes big plays all the time, doesn't he? That one resulted in a try. Many don't result in a try. It might be a kick chase or an effort off the ball, but he is always making big plays. You watch him closely. If you watch him live, the effort that he puts in and around outside of when he gets the football or makes a tackle, he's incredible.
This was a big scoreline, Bill, 38-4.
Yep.
Would you have expected this or been wary of this going in, or did you think it would be a lot
closer? It's not unexpected. I don't think it's unexpected. The Panthers are a team that don't beat themselves, and they just know their game. They know their game better than any other team in the competition, and they stick to it. Nathan's obviously playing out of this world at the moment.
How good is he?
He's playing incredible. And I thought the performance from Jerome Luai to come into the game under an injury cloud, carrying that dislocated shoulder, for him to put his body on the line, and then he adds to the cohesion of the team as well. He combined with Nathan on a couple of occasions to create tries, but they just stay in the grind. They're a team willing to win 2-0. They do create points, but they're happy to stay in the grind. Their first error was in the 60th minute of the game. That's knowing your game and staying in
That's hard,
in
isn't
fight.
it?
That's hard.
That's hard to play against.
I was blown away by his performance,
Yeah,
Jerome.
it was good.
I thought he was absolutely no chance of playing this year after he came off. Who did he come off against?
Against Parramatta.
Parramatta. I mean,
What is
the
it?
arms,
29
It was
days.
29 days that he...
absolutely amazing.
I thought he was no chance either. I thought we won't see him again this year. Credit to him and the medical staff at Penrith to not only get enough strength in the shoulder, but to get the pain-free side of it. Like, he came off with excruciating pain. That's a big effort.
Something the Melbourne Storm has always prided itself on is defence, but big one is discipline.
Yeah.
Big Nelson lost his head the other night a few times.
And it's not the first time this year. It's been a very inconsistent year for the Melbourne Storm. And I look, we can't underappreciate making it to the Final Four. A prelim final is we just spoke about the Warriors and what a great success it's been there. Now, the Melbourne Storm have had to do the hard work as well to get to this point. But I just feel there were 14 errors and there were 13 penalties for the Melbourne Storm, either 60 goes or, this sort of stuff. They can't continue to do that.
Do you think it's frustration?
Well, it's releasing pressure on the opposition and it's putting pressure on yourself. So whether it's frustration, whether it's mental toughness, whatever it is, the Panthers aren't doing it. They're not giving their team that release of pressure where the Melbourne Storm are consistently releasing that pressure on their opposition.
Well, they learn it off the Storm. There was a grand final 3 years ago and they walked away from that grand final. They said, well, you know what? They pushed over us. We were bullied. And from there, they just said, well, it never happens again. And pretty much it hasn't happened again. Like a team tries to put it on them, they stand up for themselves. And no one ever gets over the top of them. You can beat them, but you're not going to sort of out-muscle them. And they're a smaller team. And that's the significance of like Fisher Harris, Moses, Isaiah Yeo, Kenny, all those blokes in the middle aren't as big as a lot of those teams, but they stand their ground and they've done it for years. And they learn it off Melbourne Storm. They learn it from that grand final. And they haven't wavered away from it. And that's the backbone of what they do.
I want to ask you about Nathan Cleary.
He's good.
He-
He's just good.
how much have you seen his game evolve? I would say just over the last 12 months even. We already knew he was good before that.
You know what? It proves that there's reward for effort. If he does it on all scales. He doesn't just watch video. He doesn't just work on his fitness. He does it on all of the parts of rugby league and the body and all of it. You talk about a Lindsay Collins or someone similar where they're just getting the best out of themselves. Like if you believe in ways to better yourself, like we hear so much sort of, there's so much out there there's so much crap. But if you just get into something, do it, you just get the belief out of it, it makes you better. And what happens, and Sean Johnson was talking about, things slow down and you get clear. And that's what happens. You make decisions better, your timing's better. You look at his kicking. He kicked one dead. That was a 7 tackle. That was the only blip on the radar the other night. That was a pretty impressive performance under pressure.
He's tough too, isn't he? He's a tough player. The two highlights that I like out of that, they were creating tries and scoring tries, but the dummy half run, he identified that there was a marker that wasn't square. So he actually runs from dummy half and points to the marker, I think it's Trent Liero, to say, referee, he's not square, this one here. Points and say, he's not square, penalty. And then the one where he took the intercept, he chases back and he doesn't go to Harry Grant, he goes to the passing lane.
Yeah.
Like that's a player thinking about his football, always staying in front of the game. That's impressive to me.
So when he's pointing at marker, he's taking a leaf out of Cameron Smith's book. He's actually reffing the game too.
Yeah. Well, he's in front of the game.
I was joking. Cameron used to control it, used to play it.
Well, they're playing to the rules.
Yeah.
They're actually highlighting, a deficiency in the opposition to say, hey, he hasn't worked hard there. He's not back at marker. We need a penalty out of that.
What about the shootout this week, him and Reynolds?
Just quickly, do you reckon that was a frustrated pass from Harry Grant? Like Nathan looked like he was there the whole time. Do you reckon that was one of those ones where you go, we've got no other better option to score. I need to try this.
Maybe.
It looked like that, didn't it?
Yeah.
What about Cameron Munster's last 2-3 weeks of footy?
Yeah, well, I think it's a reflection of the team.
They've been on the back foot.
Yeah, they've been on the back foot.
But on the back foot, when you haven't got that go forward or dominance in the middle, you still have to impose yourself on the game. And I think that's the next step of Cameron Munster.
And
being able to play on the back foot and dominate from there.
It all starts with organising. As a playmaker, you need to be able to organise your team around you, and that's one thing that the Melbourne Storm haven't been able to do in this last 6-week period is get their team organised and play on the one page. You look at Sean Johnson, when he creates stuff, he's telling people where to be. He's organising the whole setup. Nathan Cleary does it, so it's hard to do it on your own in our game. It's a lot easier when you get a little bit of help from your teammates and you get that organisation in your team.
And
he has
front
spurts.
rowers at all coming through?
No.
Missing a front rower.
No.
Brisbane beat them up a couple of weeks ago in the middle, and then Fisher Harris and Yeo, especially them two, just destroyed him in the middle.
Well, you see the two teams that are left, they've got elite middle forwards.
Well, that's what wins the big games, doesn't it?
He has spurts. So there was a spurt just before he got palmed off where he had 4 runs, he had 4 touches in the one set. And you can see that in the different games he did against the Roosters and come up with a few things where he actually turned the game twice on just big sets where he got involved, one tackle after tackle after tackle. But like you said, it's about doing that over a whole game, 80 minutes, and making differences all the time.
That was the brilliance of Wally Lewis. He played on the back foot in Origin, but he got his team home. In either way, in defence or attack or his kicking game, he could impose himself on the game when they were on the back foot. And that's going to be the challenge now for Cameron Munster.
What happens after this game for Melbourne? What does Craig Bellamy say to the team ahead of, what will be pre-season and what in November?
Yeah, I think he'll set the foundation that, hey, we've got to work hard to create it again. But I'm sure the coaches for the Melbourne Storm will go through their season and go through the performances, especially the back end of the season, and work out exactly what went wrong and what needs to be fixed going into the pre-season. You can't just flick a switch. You've got to start from November and work your way through. You look at the Broncos, I'm sure they did that last year, at the back end of last year. They worked out what went wrong and they went through to rectify it for the next 11 months.
Yeah, big off-season coming up for the Melbourne Storm. Plenty more still to come here on the Sunday Footy Show as well, coming up.
With the finals around the corner, NRL on 9 has you covered.
From match highlights, press conferences, don't forget, Freddie in the 8.
Of course.
NRL on 9 has you covered for everything. One-stop shop.
Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss a moment.